So this is kind of an oddball episode. In fact, there's at least one notable abridger who I've worked with on a couple of projects who mentioned that he thought that this was my worst episode, which I can definitely see what he's saying. I think I would have to peg my worst as the first one when I still had no clue what I was doing, but...
Are you having a flashback again?
But this episode is definitely uneven at best. Like this scene here, which, every once in a while I'll have what I call a filler line, just, a line that needs to be there to establish a plot point or just for continuity in the scene, but that doesn't really have a good joke in it. And this is like an entire scene made of nothing but filler lines.
Not at all. The royal family interbreeds all the
But
time.
it does still have a couple of good bits, but there's no joke here so strong that it can carry the entire scene like there usually is, I think.
Brain so smart. We're thinking.
I use that... That's why I do this, with this!
Let's continue.
Joke a couple of times, up until Gantz. It's a formula, but it works.
And if my sex ed teacher had taught me how to use a condom instead of yakking on about abstinence all the time, you'd never have been born.
I love that line, and I was always disappointed that nobody else seemed to like it so much.
If Father thinks you're weak, then he'll never see it coming when you get tired of his shit and stab him in his sleep.
Everybody quotes that line back to me, and it is a good line, but I like the one about abstinence. Oh well. Another example of my view of things never quite jibing with the fans' view. But there's this joke coming up here about Guts thinking that when he kills the kid it'll make him mature as a character in some weird Nietzschean way. And it sounded so hilarious in my head, like that was going to be the big joke for the episode. And I just couldn't make it work. Usually when I've got a joke like that, it's either, if the execution doesn't work, at least in retrospect, I'm able to think, oh, if I just done this differently, it would have been better. But I've never been able to figure out how I could make that joke work. But I'm convinced that it could work if somebody with more talent did it.
Then his memory came back and it was like, oh, snap.
And then there's this Death Note joke here. I struggled for a while to think of which scene from Death Note to have Corcus describing that would be a pivotal scene, a really memorable one, but that I could describe without it being a huge spoiler. But then this bit here, I am really proud of, where Guts compares what he just did and how horrible he feels about it to the taste of wine. It's this really weird, bizarre analogy, but I think that became my model for how I would treat some of the really tragic, horrible things that happen in Berserk, where yes, I do make a joke about it, I do try to get a chuckle about it, but I don't diminish the impact on the characters. I don't change the fact that Guts is really, really disturbed by what happens to him here. So, the rest of the episode, take or leave, it can go hang, but I was very happy about that, and I still am, to this day. This scene got a little long and a little talky. I think I could have done better with this scene. And there is one bit in this scene that didn't make it to the abridged version that was in the original. I was always sad that I didn't get a chance to work it in. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and pause this so I can show you real quick here.
I'm borrowing this.
Hey.
I think this was the moment when I, as a fan, just absolutely fell in love with Casca. Because she takes literally the shirt off her back to help Guts out. And it's not that she's even particularly attracted to him yet at this point in the story, or at least she'd never admit it to herself or anyone else. But she would do that for anyone. Any one of the Hawks. If she sees somebody hurting, she helps them. No matter what it costs to her personally. And you can just see in Guts' face when she does that he's just seeing her for the first time. And it's also a bit of symbolism because, taking her colors and tying it around her arm, that's what, noble-born ladies did with knights back at the time in the medieval era. And so even though it's not explicitly romantic, it's got that undertone there. And you also see it as a contrast, because you've got here the two pairings, you know, Griffith and Charlotte, and Guts and Casca, and you see that Griffith is talking about friendship and how he values people who are equal to him, which Charlotte just is not at all. But he values her for what she can give to him, whereas Guts values Casca because of who she is. She doesn't have much, you know, a scrap of cloth, but what she does have, she gives freely, and that's the sort of person she is. And just all that meaning, just packed into not even 2 minutes of screen time. So anytime somebody asks me, why is Berserk so great? Why is it this great piece of art that I've just been rambling about for far too long here? I point to this scene and say, you know, anything that can pack that much meaning into that little screen time has got to be good. And so I think if there's any justice in the world, in hundreds of years, people will be studying Berserk in school the way we study Shakespeare now. But that was my fanboy rant for right now. Thanks for bearing with me. Back to the episode. So then we've got this scene, which was, once again, total filler. I got my 4 minutes was my self-imposed minimum running time. I always said if I ever can't fill up 4 minutes, then I'll suck it up and combine 2 episodes into one. And I was almost there. I had like 15, 20 seconds to kill, so I threw in that scene. Just horrible, horrible girl voices talking to each other, oh god. But, on the bright side, I did get to reuse that idea of characters reading ahead in the manga to know the future. And we're out of time. Ironically, I can spend more time talking about this crap than, than the actual running time of the episode. Okay, thanks for bearing with me. See you next time.